What's up, y'all? Welcome into another edition of DNVR Rams Live, presented by our friends at Branded Bills. Head to brandedbills.com, use that code BBDNVR for 15% off of your first order. Hope everybody was able to enjoy their weekend. I suppose the silver lining, the sole benefit to playing late night Friday night matchups, waiting around all day, only to see your alma mater get their teeth kicked in once again, is that you still have the rest of your weekend to move on with your life and get other things done. I was able to get some landscaping done. That was great. Got to get all this last minute work in here before hockey season really takes off and my schedule just becomes pure chaos. We've got a lot to get into today. I'll dive into the numbers a little bit. We'll talk about the key stats, kind of why the story was what it was on Friday night. We'll talk about the direction of the team moving forward, all of that fun stuff. If you're watching live on YouTube and would not mind giving us a thumbs up, I sure would appreciate it. If you want to say what's up, say good morning in the Toyota chat, I'd appreciate that as well. If I don't get to your questions, comments, etc., we'll start it and we'll come full circle at the end. The CSU falls 45-24 in the conference opener at San Diego State. 8:30 kickoff. You sit around all day waiting, and just right out of the gate, it was very clear how that game was going to go. The Rams go 3-and-out offensively. Actually did get a stop on their first defensive series, but I believe San Diego State had 9 total possessions. They punted on the first and the final possession, had 7 consecutive scoring drives in between. A dominant performance from the Aztecs on both sides of the football. Just completely outclassed CSU in a way that was really disappointing, really alarming. You did score a season-high 24 points with the OC change. There are a couple of positives that you can try and build on going forward, but really the biggest takeaway from all of this is that the ship is sinking. I wrote it in my post-game column. I think everybody that's listened to the show or even followed me on Twitter over the years has known that I've been a pretty big advocate of Jay Norvell. I think he's a really good guy. I personally have had a strong relationship with him. He's been on the podcast many times. The access has been great. He's always been polite, and I feel like he's given thoughtful answers. So from that standpoint, we have a really good relationship. But the fact of the matter is, CSU has been leapfrogged competitively by multiple programs that have flipped from a different coach, since Jay came in. Timmy Chang, I think, who obviously was supposed to be part of CSU's initial staff under Norvell, ultimately got the head coaching gig at his alma mater. You could say that what he's got rolling at Hawaii seems more encouraging than the direction of CSU. I mean, UNLV, Fresno State programs that had significant roster turnover from a year ago are both playing far more competitively than the Rams. San Diego State sitting there looking pretty good, and they lost a lot of guys to the portal. I mean, you can point to some challenges that have been very real for CSU throughout this tenure. Losing all of these projected starting receivers to the portal, that has not helped the cause. Defensively, I feel like you've really felt the loss of guys like Kershke and Newer Gatkuth, particularly in the trenches, and that's been tough. Really do like the corners for the most part, but it's just been not even close to good enough to get the masses to buy in, and it just feels like it's the same old story week after week. I come here at the beginning of the week and be like, maybe they could turn something around here, and we'll have something to hold out some hope for, but it just does not seem to be working. And I wrote it on Saturday. But at this point, the writing on the wall is pretty clear. This ship is sinking, and Jay Norvell is going to be the captain that goes down with it. Now, whether there's an in-season hire or not is still TBD. I won't lie, I thought it was a possibility this past weekend after the performance we saw against San Diego State. I still think that economically, if they can stomach it, it probably makes sense to wait a little bit and not have to pay that full buyout. I also think that you can make the argument you might lose 1.5 at the gate in terms of fan support over these final 4 games, because it's just not going to get any better, I don't think, when it comes to how the community and how the alumni feel about this program right now under Jay Norvell. And while I could point out some positives that have occurred under him when it comes to recruiting and community involvement, he's been much more active in the community than Adazio was for certain. But even Bobo or McElwain, like, he's really old school when it comes to that kind of stuff. Very charitable man. I love all of that. I love what he's done from an alumni engagement standpoint. Really done significant work to repair the relationship with a lot of CSU legends, some folks that were turned away during the previous regime in a way that's, when you hear some of the stories about like CSU legends showing up ready to write a check and just wanting to watch practice, and Adazio not being able to give those guys the time of day, like all of that stuff was horrible. And Jay's done a really good job in that element. I think he's stabilized the program after such a disastrous tenure, and I think he's represented CSU with class, and there's something to be said about that. Again, I really like the guy. I was rooting for him. I still am rooting for him. It's not like I'm rooting against him, but the fact of the matter is the writing is on the wall here. And when you look at the numbers, it's just hard to argue. He's 2-17 at this point against teams with a winning record, 0-8 in 2022. That was pretty much an impossible position in his defense, just with the roster situation when you're playing with scholarship totals in the low 80s on top of playing a fairly difficult schedule. It's unsurprising that it was rough, but 2023 1-3, 2024 1-3, 2025 0-3 to this point. 2-9 in years 2 through 4 against teams with a winning record. It's just not indicative of a program that is ever going to be able to get over the hump. And when you look back to the expectations that were laid out by John Weber at the beginning of the season, and when you hear him very publicly say that last year left a lot to be desired, or they left them feeling like they were hungry for more, and to then come out and be 1-4 at this point, to be really struggling. And you look again, like 2-17 against teams with the winning record, 3-9 against the future Pac-12. He's 2-6 in rivalry games, and it's not looking great, in terms of those matchups this year. Maybe Wyoming, they're about as big of a mess as CSU is, but Air Force can score. The record away from home is just 4-16, including 2-6 between 2024 and 2025. It just feels like the program has, at minimum, peaked, maybe even regressed from a competitive standpoint. And it just hasn't been enough to get the people to buy in. It was really frustrating Friday night, sitting there thinking about how we waited around all day for this matchup only for it to be such an underwhelming showing. And it's just been consistently not good enough. And what I would consider to be winnable matchups, I would say each of these last 3 games, you're not playing slouches, playing competitive opponents, respectable teams from the group of 5, more so than when you look at the win quality for a team like UNLV. I'll get into that a little bit later. They're doing their best to make me look dumb with my preseason commentary, but from an eye test standpoint, still don't feel like they're actually that good of a team. All of that being said, when you only score 3 points against a team that had given up close to 120 in the 2 weeks before that, and then you go on the road and you give up 45 to a team the week before who failed to score an offensive touchdown against Northern Illinois, a MAC team. And I get that was maybe a little bit more on the flukier side of things for San Diego State. They put 34 on Cal the week before that, to be fair, and just add the appropriate context. But that's a tough pill to swallow, I think, if you're the fan base, to see teams like Washington State who are getting rolled by opponents like North Texas, teams like San Diego State who can't score an offensive touchdown on Northern Illinois, just put it on CSU. And it doesn't feel like we're building towards anything at the moment. It just feels like we're throwing stuff at the wall, hoping that it'll stick, looking for any type of spark. And I understand that injuries have played a major factor, especially in the trenches. You know, I think the offensive line is struggling. I think the defensive line is struggling to generate pressure. And I think injuries are a big part of that. But every team has to deal with injuries. Every team has to deal with transfers. At some point, that's not enough of an excuse to justify the product that we've all been witnessing, which has basically been unwatchable football. And it's just a really big bummer based on what could have been this year in a Mountain West that does not feel like it's incredibly deep. Everybody's beatable. The fan support has been there. The turnouts have been great. The students have shown up, and it just feels like such a missed opportunity. A lot like what you could say about the early years in Canvas Stadium, you know, just not capitalizing on the moment, not striking while the iron is hot, seems to be the story of CSU over the last 20 years. And I don't know what needs to happen for them to be able to find success, because institutionally the support is there. They commit to athletics. You look at the staffs, you look at the resources available, not just with football, but all of the athletic programs at CSU. It's all in place. The people support the programs. They show up. The attendance is there. The passion for athletic success is there. You know, it's not a San Jose State situation. When teams win, CSU fans show up in a major way, and they are just dying, absolutely starving for any type of sustained success on the football field. And it just continues to elude CSU. And again, it leaves me scratching my head a little bit, because it's not always for a lack of talent. You look at the last 10 years, the amount of incredible players that have been in this building. Trey McBride, you know, Tory Horton continues to ball out for the Seahawks. Mo Camara, they have had dudes. Dallin Holker. I mean, we could list them on both sides. It's not like they've been a train wreck from that standpoint. I would say that on paper, Jay Norvell made a ton of sense as a hire. He had great success at a program within your own league, had shown you firsthand up and close, you know, what his teams were like in Reno. They just stomped CSU a couple of times. It made sense. And for whatever reason, it just has not worked out. Maybe had they won a couple more of those games in 2023, things would have been different. If you find a way to just hang on against CU, if you find a way to win even one of the Hawaii and UNLV games, it feels like there just would have been a lot more leash. And it just kind of feels like, in hindsight, looking back at some of those moments, that was kind of, I guess, a forecast of what was to come for CSU. You know, we'll make some improvements. It's not as if there hasn't been any growth at all. It's not like it's been an absolute disaster, but it's always 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. And here we remain in limbo. And it's not enough. And it's a massive disappointment. This team has significantly underperformed, in my opinion. Again, you can point to the injuries, and I think some of that is fair. But at worst, when you looked at that schedule, I think the fans would have said they need to be 3-2, if not 4-1. And to be 1-4, having already gone to the well with an offensive coordinator change, having already shifted quarterbacks, it feels hard to see any positive outcome coming out of this season. And again, who knows if they're going to make an in-season firing or not. I don't know competitively if it's really going to change a ton. I suppose you could look at a UCLA situation with Tim Skipper. Shout out to my guy, Tim Skipper, by the way. So cool to see him in UCLA go on and beat number 7 Penn State. Tim's the reason I got hired at CSU football. He was Fresno's interim head coach last year and a couple of times throughout some of that Tedford stuff. Maybe he could be a candidate at CSU down the line. I'm not going to do that, every show, but it does feel pretty clear at this point that CSU is going to look pretty different in 2026. It just feels like you can say that with certainty at this point. I do think it's an attractive gig. I think it's the most attractive that the gig has been in a long time. Just when you look at where CSU is at from an athletic and institutional commitment standpoint now versus even 2014, it's night and day. Coaches want to go to a place where they feel like they can win. I mean, shoot, it's why Jay Norvell wanted this gig in the first place. He looked at what he had in Reno and thought, man, if I can do this here with this, imagine what I could do at CSU with all that. And I do think there will be a lot of coaches that would feel that way moving forward. I do think you have to be decisive regardless, of what happens here in season. You've got to have a very clear direction of what that's going to look like. And knowing this administration, they'll be proactive. They'll have a plan in place, a list of names, all of that. You do want to try and limit the period with which you're experiencing instability as much as possible, just because we all know all those players are free to pack up and go. And that's going to be the toughest pill to swallow, I think, with some of this, because there are genuinely some highly talented players in this program with multiple years of eligibility remaining, the types of cornerstone type players who you would love to build a program around. And that's why having a clear-cut direction, showing these guys that there's at least a possibility of maybe hitting the ground running in 2026, like what you're seeing at Fresno State, like what you're seeing at UNLV, even New Mexico. I mean, New Mexico has completely outperformed expectations to this point, but it's just been a brutal start to football season. That's the easiest way to put it. Let's take a quick breather real quick. We got to stay on schedule. Let's shout out a couple of partners. Keep the questions, comments rolling. Appreciate everybody rocking live with us this afternoon. But let me shout out those partners and we'll keep it going. All right, maybe not the best timing for this one, but how excited are we all for college football to be back? I mean, being at the tailgates in the stands, there is nothing better than that. I will say it's a gorgeous facility. Being on campus, grilling up some dogs and some burgers, having some cold ones, hanging out. It doesn't get any better than that. I mean, tailgating is elite regardless of what happens in the stadium. And with the killer deals at game time right now, you can snag some cheap seats. And I mean, if they're a disaster, then you can do what the students did for years and years, which is bounce at halftime and then go back and enjoy everything that this incredible campus has to offer. The Game Time app is awesome. It gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing tickets and experiences in just a few taps. It's incredibly easy to use. Plus, the Game Time guarantee means you can trust you'll get 100% authentic tickets on time and at the best price. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use that code DNVR for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem that code at DNVR for $20 off. Tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today. Life is going to test you guys. It's going to get you worked up. Our friends at Coors Light encourage you to choose chill. After you watch CSU, don't punch a hole in your drywall. Don't throw your remote at the TV. Don't get on Twitter and curse me out for minutes on end, although I am always here as that outlet for you guys when we have to go Dr. Phil mode. But between everything you're juggling in life, work, real important stuff outside of, just being a sports fan, it's really easy to get worked up. And genuinely, you've got to find ways to do the little things. I made a joke about it earlier. It was truly therapeutic for me to get out and do a bunch of yard work on Friday and Saturday and just not think about, CSU football for a few minutes, which was always great. When you're chilling, when you are in that chill state of mind, lay back, open up an ice cold Coors Light. It's cold lagered, cold filtered, and cold packaged for a smooth finish. Make the most out of the times you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door. Visit CoorsLight.com/DNVR. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. All right. I've been asked this a lot as far as what do I think the future plan at quarterback is. I believe that it will continue to be Jackson Brousseau. We had a little bit of a schedule change at the last minute this week, I believe due to travel, but because of it, Jay Norvell's press conference will be tomorrow. There was practice today. Again, I wasn't able to attend it. Kind of got the notification when like 40 minutes before practice was supposed to start. That's always a little bit of a headache, but I get it. Stuff happens in season. I do know, though, for a fact that Jackson Brousseau was still running with the ones today. Also, BFN not at practice today. From what I've heard, he was sick. So I expect it to be Brousseau on Friday. I expect it, frankly, to be Brousseau outside of injury for the rest of the season. Maybe later on you throw Curry out there and see if you can gain him some experience. I know that he moved the ball well on that final series. 5 of 5. Ends in a touchdown. Love to see it. Happy for him. I'm sure he had a lot of family in attendance, with the game being in Southern California. I thought that was great to see. It was one of the few things on the whole night that made me smile. That said, you always have to take situations like that with a little bit of a grain of salt. You got to remember it's a 28-point game at that point. San Diego State kind of pulled off the dogs a little bit. I don't want us to get too carried away with a really small sample size. Now, he did some good things in that game. I want to give him credit. I'm not trying to shortchange him or anything like that. But I also think it's important to remember that if you throw a young quarterback out there, throw him into the fire before he's ready, it might just kill a promising career before he's ready, because there's no quarterback change that's going to offset all of the issues that CSU has on offense right now. And that's a lot of what I used to say in defense of Braden, to be fair. Footwork aside and some of that stuff, clearly he was not playing his best football. But when so many people on Twitter, even, sometimes in the Toyota chat, made it seem as, you switch the quarterback and it's going to be that simple. Everything's fixed. Oh, it's perfect. I wish life was that easy. But, switching the quarterback isn't going to make the O-line block better. It's not going to make the receivers get open all of a sudden. It's not going to make play callers, get out of their own way and stop being cute. Like, there are so many reasons right now this offense is a mess, and quarterback play has been one of the significant factors in it, but it's also not the reason that we're here right now. And I do think that Matt did some nice things in his first game as an offensive play caller. He was the one calling the plays. I don't know if people thought that Jay Norvell was just not going to wear a headset, like not going to be talking to anybody on staff at all. It's not just the coordinators that wear headsets, guys. There's quarterback coaches in the box wearing headsets. There's a lot of active communication happening amongst all of the coaches. Thought it was really weird how some people saw like one shot on Jay Norvell talking into a headset on TV and was like, oh man, it's all over. Like, he's already given up the play calling duties. I get he has been kind of weird about all that. But I do think Matt did some things well, from leaning into what was working for the offense. I thought he did a better job of feeding the hot hand. Jalen Dupree had a really nice game. Had he not gotten dinged up a little bit, I think he could have been in line for an even bigger night. Even so, still went over the century mark for the first time since Justin Marshall against Wyoming last season. Did score a season high 24 points, albeit with a garbage time drive to get over that hump. I think there were some things to build off from in that sense. They didn't go to the sub package a million times, which was encouraging. The passing game, it just still lacks consistency. I don't think that Jackson played awfully per se. Again, he was under duress a lot. The offensive line is really struggling in pass pro right now. Didn't feel like there were a ton of, open receivers that he was missing or anything like that. There were a couple of throws here and there. where he maybe rushed a few things. That starts to happen even more once you start getting hit in the face a couple of times. And again, you need better play in the trenches if this offense is going to be able to open up anything. I would like to see a little bit more play action. I think that's something that could benefit the quarterback, and I don't really understand why CSU has failed to implement it, with a little bit more consistency over the last couple of years, especially with the success that they have had on the ground game now for 2 straight seasons. I mean, maybe that's just the vintage Broncos fan in me that grew up watching Shanahan offenses, but if you're not a killer vertical passing offense, you don't have a guy who's just going to stand back in the pocket and pick people apart. Get him on the move a little bit. Brousseau is a guy who's shown he can scramble a little bit. I think him and Braden both throw well on the run, and I think we saw some of that from Darius as well. I think that's something that could benefit you. I'm not an expert. I guess I am trying to Monday morning quarterback it. I don't know what else you would call that, but I would like to see more play action. All of that said, I just think that it's Jackson's job right now, at least for the foreseeable future. I don't think that they're going to put Braden back in. Again, wasn't at practice today, but from what I've heard, and I'm not saying this to bash on him or anything like that, because honestly, I don't blame him, but I don't think that Braden is super engaged at the moment. It feels very reminiscent of when Clay Millen got benched and knew that his time was over at CSU, and still was there, at practice, still going to be on the sideline and all that. And in an emergency situation, might get thrown back out there. But I think that the bridge has probably more or less been burned at this point. And I think that some people will take that and be like, well, that's pretty immature of him. But do you really blame the kid getting booed in his own stadium, getting chance you suck from the students? And again, the play was not good. I'm not saying this to shame anyone. I'm just saying you got to look at it from a human standpoint, and everybody's throwing him under the bus. Hey, like, he's so awful. He's the reason none of this is working. There's probably been a little bit of validation from his corner, like, I'm not the only reason that this offense has not lived up to its potential. It's not to say he's above criticism. It's not to say that the play was meeting the standard, but again, from a human standpoint, like, I kind of get it. If I got benched by my bosses, somebody else hosts the DNVR Rams podcast for a couple of weeks, turns out they're not able to improve on it, they come running back to me. Am I going to be chomping at the bit to get out there? Probably not. Probably not. I think that's human nature. Who knows? Maybe we will see more of them, and maybe it'll be a redemption storyline down the line. But if you had to ask me what my gut is moving forward, it's Jackson Brousseau for the rest of the season, with potentially some sporadic appearances from Darius Curry, depending on how the game is currently going. Because I do think that there's something to be said about getting a young quarterback some experience in a year where it doesn't seem like you're going to be competing for the postseason. I mean, God, at this point, does anyone think they could go 5-2 down the stretch? Are they even going to be favored in another game this year, realistically? Wyoming, probably a coin flip. Air Force, you could say the same. Maybe Air Force at home, depending on what happens with these two teams moving forward. I think Hawaii will be favored over CSU narrowly. I think that CSU will be dogs in Albuquerque, which is just crazy to think about, given the fact that the Rams haven't lost a game to that program since 2009. That streak looks like it's in serious jeopardy this season. Yeah, they've got a lot of issues to solve here moving forward, and I don't know what you do at this point to try and salvage a season, because you've already tried the OC change, you've tried the quarterback change. You've got a bunch of injuries on both sides of the football. It just doesn't seem like there's a light at the end of the tunnel at this point. I'd love to see it. I'm still rooting for these kids. I think there's a lot of good kids on the program, have good relationship with all these coaches, although they probably don't like me as much as they used to, and that's fair, but I've got a job to do. And if they're being real, though, they'll be understanding of that, but I get it. Again, it's human nature. It's it's easy for me to get on this mic and second guess every little thing that they do, but it's a results business. And when you spend as much as CSU is spending on football right now, and you are 1-4 and seemingly getting worse by the week, it's going to be a tough product to sell to the fans. So we'll keep these takeaways rolling. Again, keep the comments in the Toyota chat firing. I love to see how active it is. Please try and stay respectful. I'll shout out a couple more partners and keep it going here. All right. You know, the moments you realize you left your sunglasses, your favorite sunglasses, at the pool, at the beach. Maybe you're on the plane already and you're on the runway and, man, forgot to check that nightstand one last time. It's devastating. I've lost so many sunglasses over the years, and that's why I love Shady Rays. I can wear them confidently, knowing that if I lose them, if I break them, every single pair is backed by lost and broken replacements. They will replace them for me, no charge, easy as that. These are seriously good-looking, polarized, durable, and not stupidly expensive. Another big key, sunglasses. I wear them everywhere. I wear them in the pool. I wear them while I'm walking my dog. I bring them to the Broncos games on Sunday. We've teamed up with Shady Rays to bring you an exclusive offer. Head to shadyrays.com. Use that code DNVR for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself. The shade's rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Whether you need snapbacks, truckers, fitted beanies, or tees, Brandon Bills has you covered with performance and style. If you're looking for some gear to make your brand stand apart from the crowd, Brandon Bills has you covered with the best custom headwear. Start your order and their dedicated team will help you create the exact custom apparel you need. They have a partnership with CSU as part of their on-campus collection. They've got a lot of great different styles. I've got the gold one here on the back on set. I've got another camo one coming, which I'm stoked to be able to rock. Head to brandedbills.com. Use that code BBDNVR for 15% off of your first order. Dylan in the Toyota chat says, can we talk a little bit about future coaches? Feels like it's not premature anymore. I say Colin Klein. Colin Klein would most certainly be on my short list of guys you would call. I mean, I don't think we need to do this every single show, guys, because at this point we've said it's pretty clear whether it's an in-season firing, whether it's, at the end of the year. We know outside of a miracle, like CSU running the table and completely flipping things here, it's going to be a different coach in 2026. I don't want to do this every single show where it's like, well, what about this guy? What about this guy? I think there's a lot of good solutions like you have here in Colin Klein, a kid from Loveland, up-and-comer as an OC, no head coaching experience, which is always a bit of a gamble, but you can't get the experience until you're given the opportunity. I understand that's a bit of a paradox. Brian Harsin would be very high on my list. I stumbled onto some conversations on Ram Nation, and I shouldn't be surprised. The message boards are always a little bit all over the place when emotions are this high, and that's understandable. But the amount of people that I've seen basically implying CSU would be too good for somebody like Harsin, while at the same time clamoring for the Mike Gundys of the world, that's baffling to me. There are a lot of coaches out there who were great 20 years ago that you could throw out, but I think that's a recipe for disaster in modern college football. I'll just go ahead and say that. But I'll, when we get a little bit closer to when this is for sure happening, it's a little bit more definitive. Again, like we know where this is going, but we will certainly focus on it very intensely, and I'll go through 8 million different potential candidates. Really, that's the thing. Like, it's just kind of throwing shit at the wall, hoping to make the best educated guess you can. I never would have saw Jay Norvell coming in a million years, and I certainly would have been I would have seen an Adazio hiring even less. Like, it's kind of a crapshoot. I do think there's some good options, especially depending on what happens. But we also got to remember, like, some of the key guys that you could be talking to may be employed at another school right now, or maybe somebody that gets run off at a P4 who has higher to expectations. Like, you look at like NC State or something like that, and Dave Dorian, like, maybe he could be in the mix. Like, there's going to be good options, but it's going to be a very attractive gig, I will say. Joey says, Harsin, some character issues will come out during the process for sure. He messed up big time at Auburn. A coach wasn't playing by the rules in the SEC. I think that's pretty common. I get, and I know there was a bunch of weird stuff that happened with him, and maybe some of that would rule him out. Just off the top of my head, thinking about guys who would make sense logically, Mountain West ties, program builder, have had success. I think he's somebody that would make a lot of sense. But yes, there are other factors to consider, and that is very important. Getting back into kind of some of the takeaways here, the run game was solid. The problem was they had pretty good success on first and second down. They did not run the ball well on third and short. I think they were 1 of 4 on third and short situations. They were just bad on fourth down or on third down period. 4 of 14 in the game, 2 of 7 running the ball, 2 of 7 throwing the ball. So no matter what they tried to do, it just did not seem to work with consistency. And I think some of that falls on the struggles in the trenches. Some of it stemmed from just the game getting out of hand. And I don't want to say they quit, but the body language on TV was not great. That's one you can get a better sense of in person when you can see the guys on the sideline and stuff. But it certainly didn't seem like the Rams had a ton of resolve, especially as things started to kind of spiral on them late in that second quarter. Had a chance, felt like had you been able to stabilize things there to maybe make things interesting, you could go down 14-0, but then you throw the touchdown to Armani Winfield, cut it to 14-7. To me, it feels like the turning point of the game was with 1 minute left in the first half. CSU gets the ball with 51 seconds left on the clock. They go 3 and out, only take 8 seconds off of the clock. San Diego State proceeds to go 3 plays, 75 yards, and throw another score on the board on top of getting the ball to open the second. That was the dagger. That was what buried CSU once and for all. That was, if you want to go back to, this comp we keep going to, that was when the Titanic officially hit the iceberg, it feels like, and now we are just all swimming in the wreckage, holding out hope desperately for somebody to save us down the line. Maybe that rescue ship will come. Maybe it won't. Is there enough room for the both of us on that life raft, Rose? Watched that movie a bunch of times. Still feels like she could have saved him. Just saying. Armani Winfield has not been the best guy, or has not been the most consistent guy, but he's probably been the best guy in terms of generating big plays. I had a nice touchdown in this one. Nobody has been able to develop into that safety blanket that every quarterback needs. The guy you target, Cortland Sutton for Bo Nix, Julian Edelman for Brady back in the day. It doesn't have to be a true outside receiver. It doesn't have to be a slot guy on the inside. It could be a tight end. I think that's been Kelsey with Patrick Mahomes, and maybe Jackson Warren would have been that guy had he been on the field these last couple of games. But that's been something that's been very frustrating for me, is that you see a guy like Winfield make a play or two. You see a guy like Maher make a play or two. It just doesn't feel like they've been able to get a guy going and really get him in rhythm, get him a 8 target, 6 catch game for 140 yards and a couple of scores. A Tory Horton stat line. We just haven't seen it. And to be fair, none of these guys are Tory Horton. So maybe, hoping for that is unrealistic, but I just think that the inconsistency with the guys out wide and the rapport that seems to be kind of lacking between multiple quarterbacks and all the receivers, it's been a factor. Maybe that's on the O-line plan. I don't know. It's just not been enough. They have to figure that out. They've got to be able to throw in the middle of the field more. They were talking about that a lot on the broadcast. They've got to be able to stretch the field a little bit more, because if not, they're going to do what San Diego State started to do against CSU after having some success on the ground, what teams like UTSA did as well. They're just going to start putting 8-9 in the box and daring you to throw. And if you're not able to beat them over the top, going to be pretty tough for guys like Dupree and Avant and Marshall to make plays, especially with some of the young guys that they've got in the interior there. Beloved Tier in the Toyota chat says, got to go back to BFN, such wasted talent. Yeah, he still does have a ton of talent and potential, but that's what it's been at this point, is theoretical potential and not actualized success. And that's kind of been the tale of his career to this point, is what could be has not been what we're actually seeing. The results they've not come to fruition. And that's been a little bit of a bummer, because I like the kid. I was obviously rooting for him. I think what would have been best for CSU would have been for BFN to be fully unleashed, for him to meet all of his potential, all of that as development, for a myriad of reasons that I feel like has been stymied. Am I using that word correctly? Throwing a lot of big words out today. But yeah, I just, I don't know what you're going to do. Like, again, I said it earlier, I'll say it again. There's no quarterback change that is going to fix all of the problems that CSU has right now. I think it's fair to say that QB has not elevated the offense. We haven't seen any moment of a guy going out and just finding a way to get it done, kind of like Bo Nix did for the Broncos yesterday in the fourth quarter. Did remind me that I do enjoy football from time to time. But I mean, it's just far from the only issue with this team right now. And the injuries in the trenches are really felt. Losing Morley for the season is devastating. Losing Mukendi Wakalanji and Gabe Jones in the defensive line, the other way, has been brutal, and they haven't been able to generate any pressure with that front seven whatsoever. They're young and inexperienced. I do think they've got some guys that have bright futures, but like outside of Andrew Lorick, there's just not really any experience in there right now. All of their pressure comes off the edge. That's like one of the things the defense actually does really well, is generating some pressure on the quarterback with, some of those nickel blitzes and corner blitzes from outside. But the problem, especially in that San Diego State game, is they were sending 4, 5, 6 guys with consistency and not even getting close to getting home. And then you're putting your corners and your safeties in a rough spot. It was not a great game for the safeties. Both Noland and Dagan Myers got torched pretty bad for big scores. But it's not all on them. But those kind of a tough scene with those plays. Summers got out coached though. I mean, they moved the ball up and down all game long, not generating pressure despite sending the extra guys. They kept doing it and just expected different results. That's kind of feels like the definition of insanity. I know that's the identity of the defense. I know that it's how they're built to play. It's what they want to do, but got to adjust a little bit if you're just getting torched the way you are. I mean, Donegal was 13-16 in this game, looking like a NFL quarterback or something, and not a guy who got run off by Michigan because he struggled to complete forward passes with consistency. And in his defense and credit of Donegal, he was awesome. I've sold him short all year. He was great. I think CSU made him look even better than he is. But he was awesome in this game, and he made those throws when they were there. That's the thing that CSU's not been able to. There have been chances for big plays at times this year. The Rams have missed on every single one of them. They haven't been able to hit them. I get that giving up big plays is a part of being aggressive. I can live with that. The 2 long touchdowns is actually far less concerning to me than the fact that you allowed them to go 7 straight scoring drives and they went 4 of 4 in the red zone, all touchdowns. That's where you got to buckle down and find ways to hold them to 3, especially in a game like this. And in defense of the defense, they've done that quite a few times, this year, but they weren't able to in this one, and it was felt. Kind of getting into the key stats here. 5 3-and-outs from the offense, really, really tough, especially when the defense is struggling to get stops. Those two things kind of compounded with each other. San Diego State finished with a little over 8 more minutes of time of possession. They had it for 9:15 in the first quarter, though, and that's kind of what really set the scene for what this matchup was going to be. I feel like we knew pretty immediately what that game was going to be. It just set the tone. CSU did play turnover-free football, but punted 4 times in the first half. The slow starts just continue to be killer every single week. And what's brutal about that is those are your scripted plays. In theory, that should be when you're most successful. And It's been far from that. If you're looking for a positive, CSU did go 3 of 3 in the red zone. Again, though, San Diego State went 4 of 4, but 3 of 3 in the red zone, scored 2 touchdowns. I like that. That's encouraging. What's not encouraging, 4 of 4 on third down, only 29% versus 64% the other way. So not only were you not moving the sticks with consistency, you weren't able to get stops or get off the field. Again, we talked about this earlier, but ran the ball well on first and second down. They averaged a gain of 6 yards on first down, but they were really bad on third down, which makes me feel like second and third down were not as successful as you needed to be. Average 3rd and 9 in terms of distance. It was 3rd and 10 the week before. That's a problem. There aren't a lot of plays in the playbook that are designed for hitting on 3rd and 9 plus with consistency. It's just not a sustainable way to make a living. And until they get that figured out, it's going to be trouble. We're going to keep this going. We've got 2 more partners we've got to shout out. I love seeing some high school football commentary in the Toyota chat. I'm a little bit of a sucker for Colorado high school football. Not very good as a whole, but my Bear Creek Bears 6-0, looking like a real force in 4A Jeffco. All right, let's shout out a couple partners, and then we'll finish up here with the last 15 minutes. Trucks have always been a part of Toyota's DNA. For generations, Toyota's built durable legends, destined for greatness, and of course, perfect for Colorado. Whether you're conquering off-road trails, whether you're hauling the weight of the world, there is a Toyota truck that's just right for you. Try the Tacoma. Try the Land Cruiser. They both work well. Try one of the 17 models available with all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive, which really are perfect for Colorado and all of the weather that you are going to experience. You see that hail and snow up in Laramie over the weekend? Crazy. Toyota offers more low and zero emission vehicles combined than any other automaker to give customers numerous choices to reduce their carbon footprint. 16 hybrid vehicles to choose from. Toyota is a proud partner of CSU Athletics. They are the official vehicle of DNVR. We've got so much love for Toyota. Let's go places. Hey, Colorado. Stop by your local Dick's Sporting Goods for the hottest apparel and footwear from top brands like Nike, Adidas, DNVR, and more, plus score the latest equipment for baseball, football, soccer, basketball, golf, and all your tailgating essentials. If you found a lower price, they'll match it with the best price guarantee. Get your gear fast with free curbside pickup at your nearest store or easy shipping from Dicks.com, because every season starts at Dick's. Pretty cool to have Dick's Sporting Goods on board. I mean, think about where we were at a couple years ago. You know, Toyota and Coors Light and Dick's Sporting Goods feeling kind of big time with some of the progress we've made as a company, which has been cool to see, especially since I've been here since the very beginning. It's been a long journey. All right, sorry I had to stall so I could get back to where I was in my notes. Just way too many explosives allowed in this game. San Diego State had 6 passing plays of 15 plus yards. They had 9 runs of 10 or more yards, 3 pass plays of 40 plus, along a 62. Not winning football. You're not going to win very much when you give up that many explosive plays. On top of that, not only are they just hitting every big play that they can, even the plays that weren't crazy successful were at least on schedule. They were moving forward. CSU had 1 TFL in this game. 1 TFL, 0 sacks. San Diego State, on the other hand, 8 TFLs and 4 sacks. I mean, that's night and day from each other, and that's really the difference in this game. San Diego State's very manageable third down, staying on schedule, moving with consistency, and when the shot plays were there, they took advantage. CSU, on the other hand, would break, some big runs. Dupree had some moments. Marshall had a couple of nice runs, and then immediately big, loss of 5, a penalty that sets them back. Penalties weren't as consistent of an issue as they had been in some of the previous weeks, but I mean, the stats are just glaring in this one. It was kind of a classic San Diego State win in the sense that they had 2 100-yard rushers, 4 different players score a rushing touchdown. If they can throw the ball, though, especially vertically, like they were able to in this one, now all of a sudden San Diego State's a team that you have to really respect, because they can get after the quarterback. Trey White is a beast. He had a great game in this one. They've got decent corners. I mean, they're athletic defensively. They've got some good athletes on the on the offensive side of the ball. Receivers still leave a lot to be desired, but Napier's a guy who's been pretty productive for them. But man, if Denical can throw and hit those throws downfield with consistency, with how Sutton ran the ball, and they had a couple of different guys. Who's the other guy? Let me see, that went over 100 yards here. Cardwell also over 100. They've got Christian Washington, who's been in the program for a while, came over from New Mexico. Like they're dangerous if they can do what they did in this one. But I think part of that also kind of comes from CSU's performance as well. If we're being real, to me, the player of the game, Jalen Dupree, 16 carries for 103 yards, 6.4 average. You could also go Owen Long, who had 16 tackles in this one, continues to put up absurd numbers. Now at 68 on the year. 160 or more would put him in the top 5 in CSU single season history. Almost all of them are pre-2000. So for him to do what he's doing in the 21st century is just asinine. It's crazy. I highly recommend, if you haven't, please go check out. I wrote a fun feature on him last week that kind of dives into that. You can see the whole top 10 list. Kind of a cool piece on Owen Long. Helmet sticker for him. Helmet sticker for Jalen Dupree, who became the first 100-yard rusher of the season, first since Jay Marsh last year. Helmet sticker for Darius Curry, who goes 5 of 5 for 51 yards and a score on his first significant appearance. It looked good in the moment, to his credit. Yes, it's garbage time. Yes, the game's out of hand. But seize the moment. When you have an opportunity, make a play. That's what he went out there and did. Got away with one pretty risky throw. It was a hell of a throw that he placed along the sideline in between 2 DBs, but it was one that happened to work out also very easily. Could have been a pick 6. But hey, in his defense, man, he made the play. Corey Hall, he gets a helmet sticker for his first career touchdown. Armani Winfield gets one for another score, as does Jackson Brousseau for getting a rushing touchdown plus playing turnover-free football. Wasn't thrilling, but it's not like he's the only reason this offense is struggling. 9 tackles from Jake Jarmalowicz, helmet sticker from him. Finally, a helmet sticker for the punter, Brian Hansen, who's getting a ton of work these last couple of weeks. 5 punts, average of 41 yards. Does a nice job with CSU and helps them play the field position game, if nothing else. Hasn't been a whole lot to feel good about with this program, so it's been tough. Nick says, just made it, surprised there was no announcement today. I mean, I think if he was going to get fired, it probably would have happened Saturday or going into Sunday, something like that. So or probably Saturday, and then you have the interim in place. You could have team meetings Sunday, kind of keep the schedule as consistent as you possibly could in that situation. But I really don't know if it's going to change a ton, other than it might just make people calm down a little bit. It's like, at least we're trying something. I mean, at this point, what is it? What does it really matter? Like, you're probably only going to win 3 games. Like, at this point, it feels like if that, I mean, 1-11 is not an impossibility, which is just insane. This team shouldn't be this bad. Okay, maybe we were a little too optimistic. Maybe we overshot expectations a little bit based on the 8-win season last year and some of the guys that were coming back. But to possibly be 1-11, this team they're not 2010 Fairchild bad. They're not Nevada, Reno bad. And to have this type of season, that falls on coaching. And it's just really disappointing just to see what this has turned into here pretty quickly. I mean, we didn't even make it to November. We started talking about this in late September. It's sad where CSU is at as a football program right now. That's pretty much all I have as far as takeaways go from this one. Let me go to the Toyota chat. I know we've got some starred comments here, and then we can wrap up with a couple of random thoughts on a bunch of stuff. Henry wants to know, how did it go this wrong? That's great transition. Worked well with what we were just talking about. Like, what did practice look like? Can we look good against Washington and then completely fall apart? I mean, guys, I've said this a million times. So when we don't get to watch every practice rep, we get to watch 1 hour twice a week. That's what we get to watch. And it's not even really the good stuff that you would want to watch, the 11-on-11s. It's a lot of like individual drills. We do get to see a little bit of that in camp with some of the inter-squad scrimmages and stuff like that. That was a long time ago, though, man. Like, they looked fine in camp. They did. Like, we've seen teams in camp that were very clearly going to be a disaster. You look at 2018, stuff like that. even 2022, some of that kind of stuff. Like, it was very clear from the beginning that those teams were going to be awful. It wasn't like that. This team, maybe we were a little too optimistic, but for them to underperform to this extent is just insane. It's been the year from hell. It happens. You look at injuries. It's like every little thing that could go wrong has gone wrong for CSU. And I do feel for Jay in that sense. There's been a lot of bad luck, but also one of the things that you see with consistent winners is they kind of make their own luck at times. But it's been bad. John says, sorry if you said this, I came on late, but do potential coaches still find CSU desirable to coach at? Yeah, without a doubt. Look, it's not the SEC guys, but this is a gig with good facilities. It's a gig where they will spend on athletics. You can have a nutrition staff. You're going to have every possible resource to succeed. Guys do far more with far less. And so I think CSU right now, even with the struggles, this is the most attractive this gig will have been since at least post McElwain, and I think really even before that, because the move to or more than that, because you have the facilities in place now, and whether it's a power conference or not, there's going to be more national attention on the new Pac-12 and it just being new, like that's just kind of human nature. Mile High Minute, would we have a better shot at a bowl game with Norvell or go in a separate direction? At 1-4, soon to be 1-5, I don't think a bowl is even remotely in the question for this team. And that's just a shame because it shouldn't be that. I mean, if nothing else, this team should have been able to eke out a 6-6 season, and it's seemingly trending more towards a 3-9. So I would say this, and what we've seen at this point, I guess anything could happen. Maybe you go a coaching change and you get the interim bump. Usually that only lasts like a week or two. Very rarely do you see an interim coach really take the reins and like find sustained success in a way that was not there with the predecessor, but you never know. But not to be too bleak, but I don't think it really matters either way. This team just is not any good right now. And that sucks. Mark, in the NIL era, it doesn't really take 3 to 4 years to get football winning games. 3 to 4 is probably a little bit dramatic, especially now that some of the rules are changing and we're only going to have the one portal window where you don't have to worry about getting guys on board in December and then having them all leave in March or June or something like that, or August, which happened to CSU in 2022. Some of that stuff should be beneficial for CSU this time around. But I mean, look at UNLV's 5-0 right now. Fresno State's coming in at 4-1. New Mexico lost everyone. New Mexico's lost everyone multiple years in a row, and they're still competing. Like, if you make the right hire, you can spark something. It's tough to do. It's easier said than done, but it's not impossible. Any reaction to Jay seemingly calling plays Friday night? Cameras caught him with the play sheet, having an active conversation into the headset. I said this earlier. I'll say it again. Just because he's not calling plays doesn't mean he won't have a headset. The quarterback coach has a headset. There's a lot of coaches that have headsets. They're always talking to each other. Matt Mummy was calling plays. Mile High Minute, do you have already answered this? Buyout, is that the main reason we haven't made a change yet? Probably. Just being real. Also, going back to what I said, what difference is it really going to make? Maybe they feel like having some type of continuity is the best way of giving yourself a chance in some of these games, like against Wyoming and stuff like that. But probably would be my answer. John says, do you think what happened to Freddie had a detrimental effect in the locker room? That's a fair question. Freddie had some guys for certain, and they followed him to Wake Forest, right? Like Newer and Gabe are both at Wake right now. I think that the defense probably got tired of Jay throwing them under the bus and basically saying they were the reason that CSU had to do all this stuff differently offensively. I mean, he was kind of unsubtle about all of that. So I would say there's probably an impact on that. I also think that it was a change that had to happen one way or another because you just can't operate the way that CSU was operating with a head coach and defensive coordinator basically not speaking to each other. And I mean, it was bad at the end. Those two dudes hated each other. So it was not a relationship that was tenable. Like, it wasn't something that you could keep going, but you could, at this point, make a fair argument that maybe the wrong guy got scapegoated. And I say that somewhat rolling my eyes because I don't think Freddie is a phenomenal defensive coordinator. I don't. I like Tyson's approach more in theory. The results just have not been there to this point, and the lack of pressure has been an issue. You've got to be able to generate more chaos. You've got to create turnovers and create negatives if you're going to play that aggressive, and if not, you're going to get burned over the top like what happened against San Diego State. So, I mean, it's really that simple. All right, y'all. That's all I've got for you guys. We'll be going live again Thursday. I'm also going live Thursday night. I'm the pre and post game host for DNVR Avalanche this year, which is going to be kind of a fun new wrinkle. I'm also going to be crazy busy. Shout out Tory Horton, 3 receiving touchdowns plus the punt return for a score. CSU soccer got back in the winning ways, now 7-2-2 on the year. I think that's about it. We can talk about Mountain West reactions on Thursday. What the hell happened with this Mark Sanchez situation, guys? I've never seen a story quite this crazy. Anyways, that's a whole tangent for another day. Shout out to everybody for rocking with us. I know it's been a brutal season, and unfortunately, I don't know if we're going to get a whole lot of relief here over the next 7 games, but it could happen. Fingers crossed. You never know. Thank you for listening to the DNVR Rams podcast presented by Branded Bills. Head to brandedbills.com. Use that code BBDNVR for 15% off of your first order. Much love, y'all. Always proud to be. Genuinely, thank you so much, guys, for continuing to support the show, even with the team struggling as much as they have been. Couldn't do it without you. Couldn't do it without Alyssa, our incredible producer, either. All right. Much love. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.